Welcome to Speaking in Spoons, the Chronically Ill podcast, with your host, Christina Brookman.
Hi, I am Christina Brookman, your host for Speaking in Spoons, and this is our special holiday episode about service animals and emotional support animals. This episode is very special to me because, as you can see behind me, that is my Roo. When I found out I couldn't have kids, my counselor at the time recommended I get a dog, and we found Rue in a shelter, and she had been abused in the past and not had the right home, and she was perfect. So she came home with us, and later when I got, or when my illness and disability became worse, whenever I was in pain, she would come to me when I was having and lay with me, and I would pet her, and it would make me feel better. Um, when I was having an episode of like convulsions or paralysis, she would go and alert people. So I'll share some videos at the end of her training when she was training to learn to open the door, because sometimes I couldn't open the door to my apartment, and she would help open the door. She'd come with me to my appointments. And she was just a light, you know. So service animals are extremely important, and they help so many people out. And when she died this past February, I thought I would never have another animal, not for a while. And then I was so sad. Um, I Everyone's like, you need to get a cat, Christina, since I can't walk a dog really anymore these days with the paralysis episodes. Um, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know." But then I was like, I will try. And then I got Phoenix, which some of you have heard about, and he is pistol. 24 hours of entertainment, makes me laugh, interacts when I'm doing physical therapy and occupational therapy. And so I'm gonna try to get him certified, or a letter for him to be an emotional support animal, because sorry, because he is that. And so up next, we've got Val Paul from Impawsible Pups. She's going to tell us a little bit more about service animals and emotional support animals. But also, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories of your service animals, your emotional support animals. Please send them in to us at speakinginspoons at gmail.com, so we can share them. That was Phoenix. He's attacking my camera. But so we can share them um, for the joy of the season. So up next, Val, and thank you.
Oh, got it.
Hi, I'm Christina Brookman, your host with Speaking in Spoons, and today we have Valerie Paul from Impawsible Pups with our holiday special to talk about service animals and emotional support animals. Um, Valerie, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do.
So I own Impawsible Pups. We are a doggy daycare, boarding, grooming, and training facility. But I got my start with training dogs, so primarily pet dogs, but I did a little bit of canine training to working dogs and things like that. I've been training now for 12 years. 13. I can math. And so that's pretty much what I surround my life with, is dogs and more dogs.
That sounds like the best life.
You know, it is. I think you have to both love and maybe hate dogs just a little bit to really do the job. Like, everybody
Sure.
thinks you're just going to come and love dogs all day, but it is actually a lot of work, and you have to understand that. And then particularly when you get into working dogs and things like that, understanding that every dog needs a job, whether that is serving as a search and rescue dog or something like that, or just sitting before they go
Getting
outside.
moles.
Sorry.
Or just getting moles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, Buffy, I know.
No, it's just like kids and humans. We all need a purpose, right?
Yeah. Sit him down, let him cough up that hair.
Kids as if kids aren't humans. That came out completely
They're
wrong.
not. Kids are not human. Ask any dog. They're strange little creatures. They're not human at all.
Just wait till your daughter hears this.
I'll die on that hill. She's not human. She's not fully formed.
Well, Val and Impawsible Pups were a great help to me when I had my service dog, Rue. She passed this past February. And Val and I got into a discussion this past month about service animals and a lot of the confusion that comes up between service animals and emotional support animals. Because I have Phoenix now, my cat, and I'm looking at, I know you've added cats to Impawsible Pups, which has made an interesting dynamic. So what would you say is the different or the biggest confusion between emotional support animals and service animals?
So this you're right, it does get very confusing. A service animal is actually defined as a dog that is individually trained to do work or perform a task for people with disabilities. Emotional support animals are in fact just that. They are emotional support. So a lot of people will say, oh, I need this dog. That's true. You may very well need your emotional support animal, but they're not trained to lie on you when you have a seizure or help guide us with most common with the blind. There's not a specific task they're trained to do other than just be a well-behaved dog. The ADA notes that their definition of a service dog does not affect or limit the broader definition of an assistance animal under the Fair Housing Act. So having an ESA really means that you can live with your dog even in apartment complexes and things like that wouldn't normally allow dogs. You just need a letter from a doctor, and that ESA might provide companionship and relieve loneliness or help with depression and anxiety, but they don't typically have the specialized training that a service dog would have.
Are you allowed, like I know with service animals, you can take them into public spaces, but it's my understanding that's different with emotional support animals?
Yes. So emotional support animals really aren't allowed everywhere. They're allowed a lot of places. And this is where I'll be honest, I get really confused as to what airlines regulations are. I believe that now only dogs count as emotional support animals on most airlines. But I know
that's a change.
Yeah, well, I mean, they got like ESA peacocks. So they kind of had to say, well, is this really emotional support or does somebody just want to bring their peacock on the plane?
I don't know. I think cats qualify.
Yeah, so I mean, this is where, oh gosh, hit my desk. Again, that's when I think you have to research the individual airline because each one is different. But ESAs do have some important protections and rights, mainly again with that Fair Housing Act, which prohibits housing discrimination with people with disabilities. So they're not considered a pet, they're actually considered something necessary for people to live by. And they can't be counted toward any pet limit imposed by a landlord. So let's say that, the landlord says, okay, there's a 2-dog limit and you have 2 dogs and an ESA, that ESA can't count. Now then, convincing a landlord of that might be a whole nother matter.
But it is within your rights to do so.
It is within, yes. And,
and I know pet fees as well. They cannot charge you for that because it's not technically considered a pet. It is an emotional support animal or a service animal.
Yeah, and that's why I say if you have an ESA and you're looking for housing, it is best to have that documentation with you, because just telling your landlord I have an ESA, and I don't mean documentation saying that you have an ESA, but documentation explaining what an ESA is and what's permitted and what's not.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So then again, with the service dog, all of those same rules apply for housing with the service dog, but a service dog cannot be barred entry into any facility as long as they're with their handler. So this is where when you see signs that say no pets except for service animals, that, you know, that's the difference. An ESA would not be allowed, say, into a restaurant, but a service dog would.
Okay. And I've even someone told me at one point and like that if your service animal misbehaves, then they can remove you. Is that correct, or is that incorrect?
No, that's absolutely correct. So here's the thing. A service animal has to follow the same rules that a person would. So if a service animal is being unruly, and causing an issue for the other patrons, they can ask you to either remove your service animal or for both of you to be removed. So essentially a service dog has to be under control at all times. Generally that means that they're on leash unless the leash interferes with their duties. So they still have to be under some sort of handler control. They can't bite or growl. If they bite or growl at anyone, well, then I'm going to question their training, but also like that would be immediate grounds to be removed. They can't be disruptive to the establishment. So barking, jumping on people, that sort of thing. Service dogs shouldn't be expected to sit on a chair at a table unless it is part of their job. So, it's not just, I want to feed my dog dinner. They can't urinate in an establishment, assuming that the establishment is inside. So again, this is where I say they have to follow the same rules as a person. And people have a really hard time grasping that. But I'm like, what would happen if you peed in the middle of a restaurant? Yeah, like I think that the manager is going to come and ask you to leave. It's the same way with your dog.
Please.
If I went around and actually, this is actually an interesting point. When I was 14, I went to I was at lunch with my dad and we went to a local bar, and this gentleman came up not understanding how young I was and bit my shoulder. And I look back and I'm like, he should have been asked to leave, because if a dog did that,
yes.
Like a flirting method?
Apparently he was a very wealthy, and like my dad knew him, but apparently he was a very wealthy individual, and that's how he would pick up women. And apparently women are shallower and cheaper than I am. So,
oh my goodness! Plus, you were 14.
I was so terrified. I was like, "What is this person doing?" And my dad was like, "Dude,
so inappropriate.
You can't."
So sorry.
You must ask to touch people. So my other question would be, so how do you get a service animal? I know a lot of people out there with disabilities and their family members that it's very difficult to find out this information.
It is. So there are really two main ways. The first one is to purchase one that is already trained. And I can tell you now, they're not cheap. Starting cost would be about $10,000 for a service animal. Now, most organizations that train them have scholarship programs and grants and things like that. And then there's always the option of a GoFundMe or something along those lines. But again, it's $10,000. The other option, and then the second side of having one that's pre-trained, there's a long waiting list. There's a very long waiting list. They're in super high demand. So I always like to tell people, because they'll go, it's absurd that a dog would cost that much. And if we were talking about you're just buying a puppy and have to do all the work yourself, I would agree. But the reality is service dogs go through so much extensive training from birth for 2+ years. So you're getting a dog that has been handled and trained and tested, and not every dog can be a service dog. It does take a certain type of dog, not just breed, but mentality and emotional stability and drive to be a service dog. So you might take a litter with 4 puppies and only one of those may pass the test. So already that's 3 dogs that go through 75% of the training and then have to be rehomed. And then they have to, they have to work on those handler skills. They have different handlers that will house them and kind of get them ready for the formal training. And then they go through and teach them the various skills, such as turning on a light switch or helping retrieve shoes or opening doors and things like that. And then they have to make sure that they can do this under any situation. So if you have a dog that is nervous around loud noises, or there's a test of one that I watched where it's this lab who's like doing this great job, and then somebody throws a ball and he just runs off and chases it. Well, they're going to try and work him through it, but he ended up failing because he just was too prey driven. And can you imagine if you're guiding someone and then just go to fetch the ball that you see thrown? Like, that's not going to work out very well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work that goes into it. So when you're paying that 10 plus thousand, and some of them now I think are $15,000, you're paying for all of that work and time and energy and effort and breeding standards and everything else that goes into it. The other option, a much cheaper option, is to train one yourself. And that one, I know plenty of people have done it. I feel like it works really well for alert dogs. So like diabetic alert dogs, seizure alert dogs, that sort of thing. It does require a strong bond with the handler. But also keep in mind all of the training and energy that I just said goes into a service dog. If you're training your own service dog, you have to do that. Now, you sometimes can get a service dog and not have to raise it from puppyhood, but you do still have to have that stable dog and things like that. You don't want the dog that's going to get nervous around people or in crowds or anything like that. They really have to be kind of bomb-proof, like nothing's going to faze them.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because that was something I remember, because we had somebody train her, and she was very skittish because she had been, I mean, Rue.
Yes.
She got she was a rescue dog and had been abused, but I remember him we went into like a Home Depot kind of, or a Petco,
Yeah.
and they have those backup machines, and he would constantly be making us do that
beep,
noise,
beep, beep. Yes.
Beep, 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 so that she would get used to it. And eventually she was, but she still, sometimes it would shake her and then she'd shake it off and then she was good to go.
Yeah, well, and you have to figure that, like, even if the dog doesn't become reactive, like even if the dog isn't biting and things like that, you don't want to constantly put them in situations that make them unhappy. I mean, at some point we all have to go through things in life that we don't like, but saying, okay, well, my dog hates being in social situations and I'm just going to take them everywhere because I want my dog with me. And sorry, I'm worried that this is saying that that's what happened with Rue. So I want to
Oh, no, not at all. There was a point where I retired. Well, I was a hermit anyways, and I couldn't really go a lot of places. I think if I had to, she would have not been able to do that. And then we would have had to make that decision. She primarily went with me to doctor's appointments and things like that. But then at home, she was the alert dog. When I had an episode, she would let people know.
Yeah. And so, well, and this is where they say, if you ever see a service dog, like a dog in vest, that is without a handler, follow it, because they're generally trying to get help for their handler. And that is actually one of their trained tasks. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point for people to know. And is it correct that there is currently no, and please correct me if I'm wrong, there is currently no national standards for training, like legal standards, or
right. So this is what makes it so dicey. There's no certification needed to be a service dog. The reality is it is very easy for someone to purchase a service dog vest and a card and say, my dog's a service dog. And there are a lot of, I'll just call a spade, scam artists who are like, we'll certify your dog as a service dog. That doesn't exist. There's no
taking
certification.
advantage of people.
They're
too,
taking advantage.
yeah.
It's, you pay $50, you get a card with your dog's picture on it and words that say service dog on the card, and it can attach to your dog's collar. I can make that with Photoshop. It's very easy. But they'll charge you $50 to $100, and supposedly you can take your dog anywhere. The problem with something like that, and the issue with having no national certification, is that it makes it far too easy for people without disabilities to fake having a service dog because they want their dog with them.
Right.
Which then, of course, you have, let's say that you have 10 people who all have a service dog and only one of them is for a person with disabilities. Of those 10, you have the one with the actual person in need, and then you have let's say 6 that are well-behaved, beautiful dogs, and then the other 3 have all of the labels and everything else, but they're barking and they're growling and they're running all over the place, and they're on a retractable lead, and they're wrapping around people's legs. Well, that means that anybody who has experience with those 3 dogs and thinks that's what a service dog is, because they don't know and aren't going to do the research, they then think, oh, well, service dogs can get away with anything. Most managers of facilities and things like that don't know the legalities of it. So then they're going to think, well, I can't ask this dog to leave because it's labeled as a service dog, when in reality, as we stated before, they're in their full right to say your dog is causing a disruption, you need to leave. So the upside to not having a certification is that it makes it easier for people who do need a service dog to obtain one. You can train one yourself, or you can purchase one. But there are a lot of negatives to that as well, a lot of drawbacks. So I know there's a lot of talk in the dog world of creating a certification and the pros and cons of that, but I think we just have to wait and see what happens with the future.
What going back to the task issue with service dogs, and then like with emotional support dogs, because my question is, I know a lot of people with anxiety, their emotional support animal can help them with a panic attack and calm down. Or like people with chronic pain issues, their animal helps them when they're like literally be able to kind of manage the pain. They pet them and the pain kind of subsides a little bit. Would that be considered a task, or is that still
that's a great question.
Or is it like a gray area?
So I think that the real defining line here is the animal trained then to perform a task. So a lot of times people with anxieties or pain issues, the animal is actually trained to press against the person, to be a pressure, to be a weight. And when they notice that dogs can tell when somebody's anxious. When they notice that is happening, some dogs will actually just lean against their handler and be that extra support. There is a great book, and I'm going to try and look it up because I can't remember the name of it. It's something about Tuesday. Oh, I have it here in just a minute. But it's actually a retired veteran who, well, there's one. You know what? Give me 1 second. I know I'm kind of putting everybody on hold while I look this up.
It's okay. We're waiting with bated breath because I'm really excited about this. Actually,
it's a great book. Until Tuesday.
I think that's a big problem for people out there,
So there's this book called Until Tuesday, and it's actually about he's a wounded veteran, a wounded warrior and the golden retriever who saved him. But he couldn't function the way he used to. He was used to following orders and things like that. And all of a sudden his life was upended when he was injured. And with that comes PTSD and depression and everything else. And he actually was able to get this service dog, Tuesday, who really just kind of helped him get back out in the world, and it gave him a renewed lease on life, if you will. But Tuesday actually was trained to he would step between his handler and a crowd to kind of create a barrier, or he'd lean against his handler and things like that. There's also another book, Puppies Are Better Than Prozac, which I have mixed feelings on as well. Like, I love the book. It's a great read. But it's essentially about how somebody conquered his depression because he got a puppy. And I think it's really important to say that doesn't mean that you should throw away all of your medications and go get a puppy tomorrow. But there is something to be there's something to be said for the oxytocin release and whatnot that comes from having a dog, and that sometimes focusing on that creature outside of yourself can kind of get you back out into the world. So I think the difference between an ESA and a service dog might be in those two books. Tuesday is a service dog with a trained task, whereas Puppies Are Better Than Prozac. That puppy maybe eventually became a service dog, but when he got him, he was at best an ESA.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you. And now I want to read those books. So
Yeah,
thank you.
They're good. I highly recommend them.
Yeah. Nate and Lexi, do you have any questions for Val?
You said cats can be service animals. What tasks do they perform?
So I'll be honest, I don't know as much about the cat as a service animal. I mean, I know that they can be ESAs as well. From what I understand with cats, it's more about alert things, like alerting for seizures and things like that. I think finding a service cat would be
hard.
Very hard. They have, cats
they don't have the personalities for it.
No, exactly. And this is, dogs, the nice thing with them is that they have the weight, so they can be almost load bearing should you need to lean on them, and they get people's attention and things like that. But I mean, we have 2 cats at the kennel now that I think, if we could take the time to train them, at least one of them would make a great service cat. The other one, well, he bit my finger after a hot dog this morning, so he's food driven, but he's not quite focused enough. Any other questions?
Nate?
I have kind of, I guess, maybe a little silly of a question. You mentioned peacocks on planes as ESAs. Is there a limitation to what animals can be considered an ESA, or is it basically just open market?
So most airlines now, I think, have pretty much said it has to be a dog. And this is one they have been in such flux, and it's something I don't research enough on my own. I always just say check the airline before you try and take your dog on. But I know that they did limit it. There may also be actually, miniature horses often make good service animals as well.
Cool.
I hadn't heard. That's interesting.
Yeah.
What about like potbelly pigs? I feel like they could lean on you pretty heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can take any animal and say that has the possibility. But I know that there are more and more limitations. So I think if you had a potbelly pig that you had trained to perform a certain task, but
they're smart, Nate. They're very smart.
They're very smart.
Like you walk up to someone and say, "This is my emotional support pig."
That's like, you can say that all day long. An emotional support pig doesn't have to be allowed in every single facility. But if you have a service pig,
love that.
Actually, this is really important. So, how can you tell that a service animal is a service animal? Well, really, you just by looking, you can't. It can wear a vest, whatever. You can't tell just by looking. Most always do wear a vest or something like that. And it's always best to assume that an animal is a service animal and ask permission before petting, yada, yada. But if you are entering a facility or an establishment, there are only 2 questions that a manager or someone can ask you regarding your service animal. And the first one is this a service animal? And what task are they trained to perform? So they can't ask about your disability. They can't ask to see them perform the task. They just have to ask those 2. So
can they deny your entry?
They can deny your animal's entry if your animal's not trained to perform a task. So if you say, my dog is a service dog and he's just here to relieve anxiety, that's actually not the task. You really want to be specific and say, my dog is, trained to provide pressure in anxious situations. That's the task. or my dog is a CNI dog, or my dog is an alert dog or something. He's trained to alert to seizures. So and this is where I think people are starting to get more knowledgeable about these rules. I know that it was not that long ago that people would take their dogs on planes, and if somebody said, well, is this a service dog? What is he trained to perform? They go, you can't ask me that. It's my disability, and that's against HIPAA regulations, yada yada. But asking what your dog is trained to perform is not asking any, or not breaking any HIPAA laws. It's just they can't then say, oh, well, is he a seeing eye dog because you're blind? Yeah, like that takes it too far. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Val.
I'm sorry. I have a friend that's going blind and he hates dogs. What options does he have?
Well,
none, right?
Yeah, there are plenty of people who have lost their sight that or who are without sight that don't have dogs. They might rely more on other humans, or there are lots of other schools for the blind and things like that to help them navigate the world.
Can another human be an emotional support animal?
Yes. Can I classify myself as a seeing eye human?
That would be a really great way to get a free ticket
on a very blurred line.
Free tickets? Sweet.
I think you might have some legality issues there, but
that's to go in a cage.
As long as you
have to travel in like the loading the cargo zone.
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing with the animal. You're not in cargo. You're right up top. So yeah. There's a meme on Facebook, or a little fun story of a gentleman who regularly flies with his service dog is on a plane, and they had to do a 1 hour emergency lane. I don't know. But the guy decided not to get off the plane, and because the crew knew him, they were like, okay. And so then the pilot said, well, would you like me to walk your dog? And he said, yes. And so then everybody panicked when they saw the pilot walking off the plane with the seeing eye dog.
I like that.
Oh goodness. Well, thank you so much for talking with us today, Val. It was nice to talk with you about service animals and emotional support. Always nice to see you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad we could finally make it happen.
I know. We've been trying to do this for a couple weeks. But, this was wonderful. Thank you, Val.
We're not having a stormy week. What can we say?
I'll tell you, it has been rough. Like I just deal with barometric pressure changes, and it gives me a little headache, and I'm like, oh, buddy. So I don't know how y'all are managing with all of the fluctuations we've had, but
well, thank you so much.
We make it work. Yeah. We figure it out. But thank you, Val. And stay tuned, guys, for updates about our New Year second season. And so we're saying happy holidays to everybody, and happy New Year from Speaking in Spoons. And check out Impawsible Pups. Impawsible Pups in Richmond, Virginia. That is Valerie's boarding and training center for dogs.
Yeah.
So, thank you. We'll put the website up on our website.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Hi, I'm Christina Brookman again. And I just wanted to say thank you to Val and my co-host, and to our followers for Speaking in Spoons. Up next, I've got some recordings of my Phoenix, as promised. And if you go to our website, www.speakinginspoons.com, you'll get more information about Valerie Paul and Impawsible Pups, as well as some hysterical and lovely photos of Rue and Phoenix that I hope will brighten your holidays. We'd love to hear from you at Speaking in Spoons. Stay safe and warm. Thank you.
You are my Phoenix, my only Phoenix. You make my heart beat when I am sad. You never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my phoenix away. Phoenix, did you get yourself in the cart? Wee! Auntie Rachel's messing with you.
See, is this how children react to moving? Is this how children react? No. Okay. Hi. Hi. Welcome back.
Come on, you want to be a doctor? Come on.
Yeah, you can work for a doctor.
Come on, come on.
Hey, Sirius. Phoenix.
Sirius, very cool.
Yeah, you want to play
Right away,
serious.
lick my hand. Come on. Come on. You want to save it? No, you focus on that. How about your estrogen? Let me test it. Where's your ear?
Yep, let's see what you got. Whoa.
Well, let me. How about your paw? How about your paw?
Oh, yeah.
Your paw. Your paw. No, I don't want to. I don't want to. Yeah, a lot
To
of
be a
toys.
doctor, you gotta be the patient, buddy, so.
Your blood pressure? Huh? You like a blood pressure?
You can help?
Give me a hand. Give me a hand. Come on, come on. Come on, come on. Come on. Hurry up. That's a cute one.
That's good.
He's following it.
I'm still following. Give me that one. Give me that one. All right. Let me see your blood pressure. All right. Here. You see? You want to patient all the in. Not enough pay attention here. You put a number in there, all right?
Good boy.
Boy, that's how you do it.
If you want to contact us, please send a DM or an email to speakingatspoons@gmail.com with any stories you have, or if you'd like to interview with us on any of our upcoming topics. Thank you for listening to Speaking in Spoons, and have a great day.